Good day to you. Today we're going to do a lot of sort of catching up because we need to look at some of the materials that we'll need throughout our study of the Gospel of Luke. Um, Now, I've already made mention of this here. This is the synoptic problem illustrated. If you can see that, I guess the letters are reversed when I put it up to the camera, but there you see how the interrelationship between the three main gospels, the synoptic gospels, and it shows how they borrow from each other. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video and bring this up for your purpose if you want to use it, or I can I can like upload a attachment in a post underneath this heading, the heading of this study, and I can do that. So I'll do all that, and we'll continue. But then again, another thing I wanted to do, a little housekeeping, was I wanted to show you the map of Israel, or what is known at this point as Palestine, because it had been conquered several times since the days of David. So it was no longer a kingdom of Israel or united Israel, but it became what is now called Palestine. Now the state of Israel exists in principle today since 1948, but at any rate, this is what it looked like when Jesus was there. And if you look here, you'll see. I'll do the same. I'll put this as an attachment as well for your purposes. This map here shows uh, the New Testament era of this particular part of the world. Um, you can see, maybe, I hope, where Jerusalem is in relation to Capernaum, and we're going to spend our time in Capernaum today. And this was where Jesus began, sort of launched his ministry and his calling of his disciples, and all the healings and miracles that he did. Now, one thing you can do, and this may be an academic exercise for you, maybe you don't want to do any work or anything, but you would learn a lot if you would sort of follow the geographic markers in the Gospel of Mark. Um, there's transitions. For example, in the Gospel of Mark, it says, and immediately after this, or right after this, or this time passed, or something like that. There are all these narrative expressions to transition, to pivot to the next part of the story. Well, he does that also with the geography of the gospel, and Luke and Matthew follow that pattern, and it begins with Jesus in Galilee, and then moves into Judea and Samaria and some other places. So if you follow those geographic markers, you'll have some sense of how that's going. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to pause the video now, and I'll be right back. I'm going to try to upload these documents for you. Hello again. I'm back, and we can just go ahead and read the rest of chapter 4 and then make comments as I usually do. See if I can add anything to it from the commentary that I use. Okay, this is the ESV. It's going to take me a little bit of an effort because the lighting's not so good. But here we go, starting at verse 31, I believe. Yeah, 31. And he went down to Capernaum. A city of Galilee, and he was teaching there on the Sabbath. And they were astonished at his teaching, for his word possessed authority. And in the synagogue there was a man who had the spirit of an unclean demon. And he cried out with a loud voice, "Ha! What have we to do with you, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, this holy man of God." But Jesus rebuked him, saying, "Be silent and come out of him." And when the demon had thrown him in their midst, he came out of him, having done him no harm. And they were all amazed and said to one another, "What is this word? For with authority and power he commands the unclean spirits, and they come out." And reports about him went out into every place in the surrounding region. Yeah, now a few things about this reading. One of the things that it points out is that they noticed, the people as well as the writer of the gospel noticed, that it was with authority and power that Jesus did and said these things. And the combination of his authority and the power of God in his life, it was convincing enough that he changed the world. The world is not the same since Jesus came and walked among us. And that is undisputed. That is an irrefutable fact of history. The way we date the years, the institutions, and the growth of Western civilization has a lot to do with the coming of Jesus. So there's that. And there's a couple other points, but let me read this excerpt from the commentary I'm using. Okay, this is on page 192 of the New International Greek Testament Commentary of the Gospel of Luke by I. Howard Marshall. Against the background of Jesus' authoritative teaching, Luke presents the story of his exorcism of a demon in the synagogue. It is characterized by the claim of the demon to know who Jesus is, and by the remarkable impression which the exorcism makes upon the spectators and indeed upon the whole neighborhood, an effect which is fitting in the case of the first recorded mighty act of Jesus. Many scholars think that Mark has deliberately placed the exorcism in a context of teaching in order to avoid any overemphasis on Jesus as being primarily a worker of miracles. The question of the historicity of Jesus' mighty works cannot be discussed here. There is an increasing tendency to accept the historicity of at least some of the stories.
Although they are often given a psychological explanation, it must suffice us here to state our position, namely, that the character of the miraculous is not to be replaced or rejected out of hand. If we accept the reality of the resurrection of Jesus, the possibility that he worked miracles becomes highly credible, and it is from this standpoint that the historicity of each individual story must be assessed. Now, that might have sounded a little bit complicated or academic, and it is, I agree. But nevertheless, it does indicate to me that we can't just ignore out of hand the miraculous aspect of Jesus' ministry and life. But ultimately, we have to look at each particular event in its own light because of the randomness or seeming randomness and piecemeal way the Gospels were put together. But that's nevertheless what we have, and it does give evidence to the idea that Jesus was the Son of God, as the demons did know him. And then another thought I had that I wanted to include in this particular lesson is that Jesus started his ministry in Galilee, and he did a lot of miraculous healings, and a lot of people witnessed that, and some of them wrote it down somewhere or passed it on orally or however it was transmitted until the gospel writers put it together. And that's how we have it. That's how we enter the story. And we need to, as human beings and as Christians, we need to find our way into where we fit into that narrative. What is it about the Gospels that makes us who we are and informs our faith? And when we do that, we've entered into the history, the story, and the narrative of the Gospels. So, and the Bible at large, the whole Bible as a whole. So thank you, and until next time, I'll be back.